A very good evening to all our participants. Just allow us a few seconds as we have all our other participants connect. Just give us a few seconds. Yeah. Well, good evening. Good evening to all our participants and speakers from India, and a good morning to all our presenters from Team South Carolina. I know it's an early morning start, but thank you for that flexibility. My name is Tarun Gupta. I'm the Managing Director of South Carolina Department of Commerce, India office. I start with a special thank you to Society of Indian Aerospace Technologies and Industries and Society of Indian Defense Manufacturers, our esteemed partners for this event. We are really pleased to welcome everyone to this, taking this time out to join our virtual investor meet, as I call it Series 2.0, the first event of 2021. We had a very successful series of investor event focused on different sectors in 2020, and keeping with the Go Digital theme, we are kicking off our 2021 series with no better focus than aerospace. So the key question which we shall aim to answer over the next 1 hour is how South Carolina can be a preferred business partner for India. Why South Carolina is just right for business. What is the cluster of aerospace in the state? Why South Carolina? What are the incentive structure? Why does it make a strong business case, whether it's cost related to land, office, real estate, or whether it is trained manpower, electricity cost, what is the incentives, raw material supply. So we will aim to answer all or some of these questions during the next 60 minutes. We at South Carolina India office is amongst the 5 international offices which the state has worldwide. This office was set up in 2014 during the then Governor Nikki Haley's visit, and it's our privilege to be part of your journey to the United, as you look to expand in the United States. So I'll be moderating today's session and happy to take any questions at the end. You have a chat box on your right hand side. Feel free to put your questions, and we will take those questions at the end of towards the end of today's session. With that, it's my privilege to invite our next speaker, Miss Amy Thompson, Director International Strategy and Trade, who has the responsibility of all international offices. And I always say, Amy, with your support to India, it's been outstanding. So over to you, Amy, for your opening remarks.
Thank you, Tarun, and good afternoon, everyone. I appreciate you taking your time out of what I'm sure has been a very busy day to spend time with us and learn more about our state. We've put together a great panel for you, one that's truly representative of what we call Team South Carolina. You'll find that in the coming hour, our state has an incredible network of resources, both public and private, that work with international companies on a daily basis. And we truly hope you'll decide on South Carolina as you expand your business into the United States. But please know that once a company establishes a presence in our state, they have access to many resources, including an existing industry program that works with manufacturers of all sizes, both large and small. The Source South Carolina program that helps new manufacturers integrate into the supply chain. And then our export services program that can help companies sell their products to any country from South Carolina, in particular, enjoying 20 free trade agreements that the US has all over the world. So as you consider South Carolina and the great opportunities set forth to you today, Please know that Tarun and his team are available to you on the ground in India for any questions that you may have after this event. And I would also like to thank our partners in this effort, Dr. C.G. Krishnadas Nair, founder and president of the Society of Aerospace Technologies and Industries, and Brigadier Ashish Bhattacharya, Director of Policy Research and Knowledge with the Society of Indian Defense Manufacturers. We're very honored to have you both with us here today. So what I'd like to do is introduce my colleague here in South Carolina, John Baggett. He's going to give you an overview of the state of South Carolina. John and I have both had the pleasure of traveling to India, John more times than I, and working with our team in India. We enjoy the country and its people and the food, and we hope to get back there later this year to work with you all. John, take it away.
Good evening, and thank you for the introduction, Amy. As she mentioned, my name is John Baggett, and I am on the Global Business Development team at the South Carolina Department of Commerce at our headquarters in Columbia, South Carolina. So I work with companies that are looking to establish a manufacturing presence or an office presence in the state of South Carolina. And my focus is mainly on two industries, the automotive industry and the aerospace industry. Most recently, I worked with Lockheed Martin on their establishment of the F-16 factory that they have put in South Carolina for the production of the F-16. So if you'll allow me, I'm going to share my screen and run through a quick presentation just to talk with you about the advantages and introduce you to the state of South Carolina. So South Carolina, if you're not familiar with our geography, is located on the eastern seaboard of the United States of America. We are located, in terms of mileage, exactly halfway between New York City and Miami, Florida. We are a state of around 32,000 square miles or 82,900 square kilometers, so a smaller state geographically, but with a population of 5.9 million, which in my travels in India equals a small suburb of most cities there. But we are a very fast growing state. Our population has seen increasing growth over the last 20 years that has made us among the fastest growing states in the US. So our location on the United States, or on the East Coast of the United States, provides some great advantages for companies that are looking at entering the US market. In terms of customer base, roughly 70% of the US population is located on the eastern coast of the United States. And with our central location, you can reach those customers within a very easy drive. The state is connected by our interstate highway system, which you can see represented on this map, which interconnects us with the major population centers in the northeastern United States, such as Philadelphia and New York City, and the Midwestern population centers, such as Detroit and Chicago. South Carolina has been a hub of foreign direct investment going back over 60 years when Michelin established their first factory in the United States in South Carolina. Over the last 10 years, we have led the country in the investment from foreign direct companies, particularly in the manufacturing sector. In fact, I just saw a stat this morning where South Carolina's private sector workforce ranks #1 for those employed by foreign entities, with about 8.8% of our private sector workforce working for foreign-owned companies. So we are very familiar with working with companies that are looking to establish their first presence in the United States and help them grow and become prosperous. And as a result, we have over 1,200 international operations in the state and roughly 158,000 South Carolinians that are working for companies from around the globe. The aerospace sector is a very strong sector in South Carolina and is a growing sector despite the hiccups in the current aerospace economy with the pandemic. we're still seeing strong investment in the sector, particularly on the defense and military side. South Carolina is home to two aerospace OEMs with Lockheed Martin, as I mentioned earlier. They have a facility in the Greenville area of the state where they are building the F-16 jets for foreign military sales. And then Boeing has a facility in Charleston where they produce the 787 Dreamliner. And it recently has become the sole site for the production of the Dreamliner. In total, we have about 400 companies that are civilian companies and 4 military aviation facilities. And since 2011, we've had over $2 billion in capital investment in the state of South Carolina. Just to give you a little idea of some of the trends, aerospace industry has a huge impact on our state. In terms of an economic impact, it has a $2.8 billion direct and indirect impact and attributes roughly $14.13 billion to our GDP for the state. South Carolina is one of the leading states in export sales, and that is driven by the sale of aircraft and automobiles from our state. And as I mentioned, roughly 136,000 people are involved in working in the aerospace industry. And you can see from the map below that stat that the aerospace industry is spread out throughout our state. So it's an industry that we are very excited about and looking forward to more growth opportunities within the state. So, as mentioned, we are with the Department of Commerce, and the South Carolina Department of Commerce is the lead economic development agency for the state. And so we provide a one-stop shop for your company to help assist you with making a site location decision. And we do this through several ways that we support you. One is we provide market research. We have a strong research team to provide business intelligence for you. We can talk to you through our existing industry program about local supplier options. We can provide cost of doing business comparisons to show how our costs compare with other areas of the United States. And we can do labor studies to show you what the available workforce looks like in an area you may be looking at in the state. We also facilitate the site selection process for you. We maintain an extensive database of available industrial sites and properties, and we're able to help you identify the facility or site that may work for your investment in the future. We also will facilitate tours of those properties for you, either in person or virtually, to help you see what is available for you. One of our keys to helping companies with new investment are our workforce training programs. And so we partner with our technical college system and our universities to provide partnerships for you, and we are able to make the introductions to those programs so that you are able to develop and grow your talent pool at your facility when you locate here. We also will serve as the liaison to introduce you to local officials, and one of my colleagues from the local level will be speaking to you later. But we'll also be able to introduce you to local service providers such as accountants, attorneys, engineers, the services that you need to get a building up and running. And we also work very closely with our state environmental agency to provide any permit assistance that you may need. Finally, the State Department of Commerce is the entity that works with our local levels to provide incentives. The state offers a variety of incentives that are either cash-based or credit-based, meaning they help reduce your liability to taxes that you pay to the state of South Carolina. These incentives are based on the capital investment and jobs that you create, and some are discretionary, meaning you have to have certain approvals for those, while others are guaranteed for you if you come into the state of South Carolina. They are what we call statutory. They are written into the state laws that if you invest in the state, you will receive those. So with that, we can help guide you through that process and work with you to develop a customized incentive package for you to help you make your location decision. So with that, Tarun, I'm going to turn it back over, and I will be happy to answer any questions that we may have in the chat box. Thank you again for your time this evening, and I look forward to visiting you in India very soon.
Thank you, John. And of course, I won't leave you in the end without questions. But what I have summarized is clearly that South Carolina has a very fast and growing aerospace cluster, not only led by Boeing, but by other OEMs as well, which has created a large ecosystem of tier 1, tier 2 suppliers. And as you rightly mentioned, John, that quite often for foreign companies, South Carolina is the beachhead, is their first location in the United States. And to all the audience who's listening, John is a food connoisseur of India. So that's his added attraction, apart from meeting all you guys, his added attraction to come to India. But John, of all your visits to India, if I may just ask you, what are the comments you had when you talk to Indian companies about real estate, about ease of regulatory process? What are the things which have stuck you in your various conversations? And then, of course, we'll have a detailed Q&A later.
So thank you, Tarun. So one of the big things that you'll find, and I get asked about on my trips to India, are the land costs. And we're going to discuss that in a little bit with my local colleague, Mr. Williams, on here. But it's interesting when you look at the cost of land in South Carolina. If you compare it to India, South Carolina has a lower cost of land, particularly if you're going out in the suburban and rural areas of the state. With that, the other thing that they ask a lot of questions about are the regulatory environment. And so in terms of permitting and regulations on business, South Carolina has developed a very business-friendly ecosystem for businesses. We have a very narrow tier of government, our organization in government is very flat. So it's nothing for us to put a company in touch with folks, at the Department of Health and Environmental Control who do permitting to help them get their permits through, to put them in touch with the Department of Revenue, who's the controls the taxes entity. So that's one thing that we do very well and that many companies are surprised about.
Excellent. Now, thanks a lot, John. I echo that the land costs have always been a revelation, and the ease of regulatory process is something which we try to streamline for foreign companies. We'll ask you more questions, John, towards the end of the session, but thank you. On that, I invite our next speaker, Dr. Krishna Das Nair, our founder president of Society of Indian Aerospace Technologies and Industries. And thank you for partnering with us, Dr. Nair. And over to you, Dr. Nair, for your comments. While Dr. Nair is doing the audio, we have noted down the questions which have been asked by the attendees in our section, and we'll be taking these questions towards the end. Dr. Brigadier Bhattacharya.
We
have Dr. Nair. Yes, please, Dr. Nair. Over to you, Dr. Nair.
Okay. Thank you, Tarun. It was nice listening to you and to Amy and John. I must tell you, maybe I have told you the story earlier also, perhaps. This particular seminar is on inviting Indian companies to invest in South Carolina. So we have the aerospace, and that too in the aerospace sector. The history of the Indian aerospace industry originates from United States. It was a chance meeting of William Powley of Intercontinental Aircraft Company then in 1940 by one of our industrialists, Walchand. They on the plane decided that they should set up a factory in India. And that's how the Indian aircraft industry started at Bangalore, Hindustan Aircraft, as a private company. Of course, later on the government took over, developed it. And then it has grown. There is a lot of efforts now by the various state governments in India in enhancing the self-reliance in the country, inviting companies from Europe and the United States to come and partner with Indian companies. And I'm also happy that there is also invitation for the Indian companies to come to United States. And when I look at it, see the all over the world, because we are both democracies and wanting to have democracies established in the whole world, peaceful country. And for India and many other countries, America, United States of America has always been a land of opportunities. That's why many have migrated and come there. Many of them have set up industries also. I know personally a number of them who have set up various kinds of industries, but very few in the aerospace, because the aerospace industry is just growing in India. And and our association, the Aerospace Industries Association itself, is not formed by the industries, because there were not any industry at that time except HAL and BEL and a few others. So in fact, it is the industry primes who decided that we must have an association to encourage private industries to come. That is the purpose of the CIT, which was started about 30 years ago, founded 30 years ago when I was managing director of HAL, was to encourage Indian private sector, small scale industries and medium scale industries, and even a few corporates to get into the aerospace. Of course, over the years, so it is actually developed by necessity, and the efforts of these industry primes have created a large number of very, very cost effective and innovative supply chain partners. Now, I look at it, there is an opportunity for them now to move out of India. And, if you look at industries, in particular aerospace industries, I wouldn't recommend any other state other than South Carolina. I'm saying this because many other areas are industrially fairly advanced, and they will have problems in starting industries there, except maybe IT. But when when you talk about manufacturing of components, structures, let it be metallic structures, composite structures, design and development of electrical, electronic equipments, mechanical systems, we have a large number of Indian companies who are innovative, or engineers, startups, and they have done well with investments from India. And there are also some joint ventures, both from USA and European countries. Now, these people can grow and contribute to the world by moving out of India, and with such attractive terms available in South Carolina, that is the place. That's the place to go if aerospace industries want to go. And so I have talked to a number of people in CIT, mainly medium scale industries, because in India, there is some growth opportunities for Indian projects, but if they move out, they become um, larger, and they will be able to contribute in a bigger way to the global community, and they will grow richer, and they will also have the satisfaction of taking their knowledge and technology to a country where there is a lot of cooperation, a country who has helped India to grow also in this area. So it is actually like a lot of Indians who are in America now coming back and saying that we want to give back to India. Just like I would say, when it comes to the aerospace industry, it is the collaborations with the American companies which has helped India to grow initially. And later on also, even during my time, we had a lot of collaboration with GE and Allison's, Honeywell, those companies in USA. And these smaller companies who are making these equipments and components, and their design and development costs are very low. So therefore they can move in over there. Now, I think we need to give some idea, because I don't know many questions, whether questions have come to you. The questions in their mind, if I may, based on some feedback I have
Please.
got is,
Yeah.
what, okay, we are ready to go. We are not going to a very difficult country. We are going to a friendly country who are always wanting to cooperate. But what do we get? Okay, the land, the infrastructure costs are low, fine. What kind of government incentives and supports they will get? And they know that the laws there are much more simple than in India. Of course, things have improved in India also now. The ease of doing business is increasing, improving day by day. But they don't have to worry about that in South Carolina. The question is that, is it easy to find finance? If they are willing to go and start a company, they have their own some capital. How much capital they have to bring in? How much capital they will be able to raise from financial institutions there? That is one question. Now, second question is about the skilled manpower is so plenty available in India, whether it is for an engineer or a technician, and the costs are also quite low. But it will not be so in South Carolina, because your labor costs will be higher. It may be slightly lower than in other parts of the United States, but they want to know some idea how the cost will figure, and how they can make the business profitable, both for United States, both for South Carolina, and for themselves. So I think you must give some write-up or some information which we can make it available to our members. I must also tell you, of course, there are large corporates. They will be probably they can look at Tatas have gone abroad to many countries, and similarly other major L&T. So many people have gone outside, but I am talking about the medium scale industries who want to grow. There is a certain limit for their growth in India if they look at only Indian projects. But if they go out, they get involved with larger projects and they can grow. That is the biggest incentive I am finding, and I am telling them. So you can probably add a few more incentives by way of answering their doubts.
No, excellent, excellent, Dr. Nair. And thank you so much for helping us set the whole groundwork of the India-US relationships, how it started, and and your own experience on a pioneer of Hindustan Aeronautics Limited, which I call it the mothership of aerospace in India. We have noted down the various questions, which we will be touching upon some of them, whether it's incentive, whether it's raising capital, availability of what is the cost of manpower. And we will also be circulating an FAQ post this event, which you can circulate to all your members. And I've always said that expansion in the United States, as you rightly pointed out, is towards mutual benefit. The operation needs to be profitable, and it allows the company to scale up their operations. It's not either or, it is just the size of the market which enables them to expand further. So we will be touching upon all these points in our Q&A, some of them, as well as post this Q&A, we will be sending an FAQ. That will be a privilege to work with your members, Dr. Nair, as they look to evaluate United States as a destination. So thank you, Dr. Nair, for your kind words. Thank you, Dr. Nair. So please stay with us. And with that, I invite our next speaker, Brigadier Ashish Bhattacharya, Director, Policy Research and Knowledge, Society of Indian Defense Manufacturers. And Brigadier Bhattacharya was very impressed by the breadth of your membership and your involvement at the highest levels in the country under Atmanirbhar Bharat. So it would be great to hear your comments and how we can work with your members to support, as some of them may look to United States. Over to you, Brigadier Bhattacharya.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. It was difficult to find that thing, to unmute yourself. So good evening to all the Indian participants, and good morning to those attending from US. It's my pleasure to address today's gathering about the Indian defense and aerospace sector, and I want to start by thanking South Carolina Department of Commerce for inviting me and to speak on this webinar and presenting a platform for the Indian aerospace and defense industry to understand the potential opportunities that exist in South Carolina. And uh, thanks to Mr. Nair, he filled in all the historical side of the Indian aerospace industry, so we need not get into this, and he did it very well. The Indian defense and aerospace industry is a fast-growing sector, which is recent times has been galvanized further due to the government's user-friendly policies, and which some of them just yesterday the Prime Minister as well as the Raksha Mantri came online and improved it even further. So as you know, India has been long been one of the largest importers of defense goods. And the current government has focused on reversing this trend recently and developing indigenous defense manufacturing capabilities. And I'm glad to share that last year, the CIPRI arms exporters list carried India at a modest 23rd rank for arms exporter. And that is, I'm sure, going to climb the ranks soon and become, a major player in the global market. As far as the Indian private industry is concerned, I must tell you that the Indian defense sector only opened up to them in 2001. And from that, I think, despite the whatever inertia was there in the system, they have moved very fast and become, a very important part of the domestic as well as the international defense supply chain. And according to data we have of 2019-20, the India's private sector has attributed to almost 93% of the defense exports approvals that have gone out in that year. The remainder going to the DPSU. So all put together, there has been a massive increase in the way the Indian defense industry has matured and is able to now service the global supply chains. And with this, we have a target set by the Prime Minister where we say that we are expected to reach US dollars 70 billion by 2030. So hence this sector clearly has a very high growth potential in the coming days. You must be aware that today India is home to almost all the Fortune 500 companies of the world through these global innovation centers or GICs as we call them, which have sprung up all over the country and is leading the global innovation agenda through end-to-end product development and are increasingly being seen as an innovation partner for the parent companies overseas. So most revolutionary designs in the world are now being churned out by these GICs in India, and where the right kind of traction is available, even manufacturing here and exporting. Name all the bigwigs in the aerospace industry like Boeing, Airbus, Lockheed Martin, and they have their offices here today. Why I brought this out is to emphasize the fact that today India has a vast base of skilled workforce, including design engineers and thought leaders that are available for the global OEMs to pick from at a major cost arbitrage. These are the people who, when they find the right kind of opportunity, do not mind making forays outside India to try their hand at making it big. These, once the right kind of risk-taking appetite they have, and they don't mind going out. A little push or maybe a little mentoring would help them take the right decision. And that is what I think the aim of today's webinar is. For the larger players, I must say that, it is not simply setting up shop, but would include global acquisitions and mergers also. For them, the decision to pick the right country or state in a country is important, though these industries have adequate resources to work on their decision matrices. I think, but hearing, I think that does my 5 minutes. That's where today's webinar again will score over, the inputs that I'm sure we will not only be able to hear from the government officials as to what is actually on offer, but also get the right clarifications, to their queries, which is more important than just listening to them. Before concluding my address, I would like to take a couple of minutes to inform the gathering about the Society of Indian Defence Manufacturers and its role it is currently playing in the Indian defence ecosystem. This society, the Indian Defence Manufacturers, SIDM as we call it, is a not-for-profit institution promoted and nurtured by the Confederation of Indian Industries. Though, as I was telling Tarun, we are a startup only 3 years old, but but our backing from Confederation of Indian Industries. CII has been in existence since 1800 some years. So this is almost like 100 years on. So it was this society was of Society of Indian Defence Manufacturers was formed in 2017 August sometime to serve as the apex body of the Indian defence industry. This is specific to the defence industry, which I emphasize, and plays an active role as an advocate, catalyst, and facilitator for the growth and capacity building of the defence industry ecosystem in India. We work closely with the Indian government and the defense forces towards enabling the growth of the domestic defense industry, and collaborate with experts from the academia as well and the industry to optimize the industry development. Our primary members today includes about 150, as I was telling Tarun in the morning, with quality defense industry members, which is growing by the day and includes the who's who of the defense industry. The DPSUs, almost all of them are our members. And we have almost about 20 FOEMs, and these FOEMs are also growing in very, very quick succession. We include, companies like Airbus, Lockheed Martin, Saab, Rafael, Raytheon, all of them you would be familiar with, IWI. So these are, name a few. We also have the privilege of the CII membership of almost about 3,000 primary members. And I was again bringing this out that while we are, our members mostly think that they should be members with making arms and ammunition, but when it comes to technical textiles, it comes to frozen food, all that go into the defense, services looking for items. So these 3,000 people we fall back on to get our things that these people want. And over and above this, we have 500,000 of secondary members from CII. This helps us reach out to a massive collection of industries and services that the services require. So with this, I come to an end, and thank you very much, Tarun, for this opportunity.
No, thank you very much, Brigadier Bhattacharya, for this excellent overview of the association as well as the lineage and partnership with CII. We had our last event in 2020, in fact, with CII Americas. So we do have a long-standing relationship. I really liked your statement on how nascent the role of private sector in defense is and how quickly it has scaled up. Also, I picked up on your comments. It's not only armaments, it's the wider remit of whether it's technical textile, precision components, composites, advanced material. Companies have a much wider remit. And we are already talking to several Indian companies who are into this supporting domain and are looking at United States as a potential market and would like to set up. And finally, I pick on your one word is mentoring. I think that's very important. And that's our role. Really, if we can play that small role in mentoring the small and mid-sized companies who are taking that first step, as John mentioned, their first presence in the United States, I think that's a niche which state has. So thank you, Brigadier Bhattacharya. Do stay with us as we move further into this session. And with that, I invite our next speaker. Our next speaker is Mr. Stephen Astomboski, who is the Director of South Carolina Aerospace and South Carolina Council on Competitiveness. Over to you, Stephen. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Tarun. And are you able to see my my slides there? Good. Great. So like Tarun said, my name is Stephen Astomboski. I'm the director of SC Aerospace. And the SC Aerospace is a industry cluster in the state of South Carolina. We're a collaboration and partnership of public, private, academic, and nonprofit organizations, all in the aerospace industry, that work to connect, support, and grow the aerospace industry throughout the state of South Carolina. We are an allied partner of the Department of Commerce, and we're very closely with them, nesting our efforts into theirs. We're part of a larger organization called the South Carolina Council on Competitiveness, and that is made up of 6 different industry clusters to include SC Aerospace, SC Cyber, and SC Tech, which focus on our cyber and tech industries, SC Logistics, which focuses on our shipping and freight, manufacturing, all those types of industries. The SC Fraunhofer USA Alliance, which is helps us secure funding for research projects with the Fraunhofer German Research Institute, and Transform SC, which works with our educational programs. So I just give you that as a background so that you can kind of understand how we're organized. But the council and SC Aerospace in particular, we accomplish our work through 3 primary means. The first is actionable research. We commission research studies to look at the economic impact of our industries on the state so that we can understand where we've been, how we've grown, and where our next opportunities are moving forward. And I'm going to get into some of those numbers. You got a little bit of a preview with John's presentation, but I'm going to dive into that a little bit more so that you can better understand the state of the aerospace economy in South Carolina. We also support our industry clusters, and I'll get into that as well, showing you just the vast number of companies that we have here in the aerospace industry, and how by all of us working together, it helps the industry to grow and flourish. And then lastly, we work in education and workforce development, whether that's connecting with our K through 12 schools or our technical colleges or our 4-year and graduate universities. We help to ensure that our schools are set up to be able to supply the workforce needed for these companies that are here or looking to move here. So like John said, aerospace is clustering in the Southeast. And I'll show you here on this map. Like we said, Boeing and Lockheed Martin are kind of the major players in the state of South Carolina, but you can see there's a number of other companies that are in neighboring states. And while we wish that they were all in the state of South Carolina, just by their proximity, it does create a good environment in South Carolina to be able to do business with these other companies as well. You see on there Honda Jet or Gulfstream or Embraer. You know, even just in the past few months, just north of that Lockheed Martin location in the state of North Carolina, there's a Pratt & Whitney plant being built. So these are all opportunities for companies in the state of South Carolina to do business in the Southeast. But specifically looking at South Carolina, this is just a small snapshot of the over 400 companies that we have here working in the aerospace industry. And again, and we'll talk about it again later, in the Charleston area, what we commonly refer to as the Low Country, it's mostly anchored by Boeing and the 787. In the upstate, it's mostly anchored by Lockheed Martin. But just to name a few other companies, we have GE Aviation, which makes turbine airfoils that go into our aircraft engines. I actually used to work there prior to coming over to SC Aerospace and the council. We have Champion Aerospace or GKN Aerospace, which make aircraft parts. We have Solar Atmospheres, which works in the heat treating part of the supply chain. We have a company like Wyman Gordon, which does forgings for aircraft engines. We have ACL Air Shop, which is one of the world's largest air cargo businesses, manufacturing the pallets and the straps to be able to ship cargo in our planes. We have a number of composites companies, whether it's Toray or Solvay, composite resources. So I just show you this to give you a snapshot. We have a very diverse representation of manufacturers and companies that work in aerospace throughout the entire state. And it's one of the reasons that even though we've had, the industry's had a setback with COVID, we're going to be able to rebound and come out even stronger on the other end. So you've seen a little bit of this already, and I just throw up these numbers to give you an example of why the state of South Carolina values the aerospace industry. A few highlights I'd like to talk about. So if you break down aerospace into defense and then the aerospace core, which would be your civilian companies manufacturing products, 10 years ago, the aerospace core was only 23% of the makeup of the aerospace industry in the state of South Carolina. Now, 10 years later, it's 45.6. So that shows you the tremendous growth that we've seen in that aerospace core, in that manufacturing, because those military bases that used to make up the majority of the industry, haven't gone anywhere as well. And so it shows the great growth. And as you can see right next to that, employment growth in the state has been 10.7% over the past 10 years. So it's just incredible. One of the reasons as well that the state is so favorable to the aerospace industry is that we call it the 2.7 multiplier. So for every one aerospace job that is created, an additional 1.7 jobs are created next to that. So that 2.7 multiplier it creates an even more of an incentive for our state to want to attract aerospace companies here, because we know it's just going to have all these other ripple effects to create employment opportunities for our citizens. And then lastly, our employee compensation, it is very competitive. It's people want to go into the aerospace industry, and want to get a job in that industry because you can see they make a very good wage. And it just makes it something that creates a lot of buzz and a lot of interest around the industry. And so like I said, and John said too, if you kind of break the state up into three regions, the low country over on the right with 36.5% of our firms, the upstate has more firms with 39.7%, but it's spread out pretty well across the whole state. Which again creates a number of opportunities and for any companies that are looking to move here. And just to give you some more numbers there, you can see on the left our aerospace core, and then also our four major military bases, which have that aero-focused defense contracting around it, with Shaw, McIntyre, Joint Base Charleston, and the Marine Corps Air Station down in Beaufort. But if you look over to the right, those numbers that just tells an incredible story. We're going from just over 3,000 direct employees in aerospace to over 22,000. Incredible growth, and something that we think is going to continue long into the future. To go over some of the things that SC Aerospace can help support for a company, and how we support the industry cluster, I just want to highlight a few things. That top box there is an example, or that's a snapshot of our YouTube page. And I would invite you all to look us up on YouTube under the South Carolina Council on Competitiveness. Right now, we're hosting a series of webinars to feature some of our companies and give them the platform to be able to talk to the rest of the industry cluster. Back in November, we started with a company called Delta Bravo, which works in the artificial intelligence space, creating programs that can help with forecast planning or scheduling or preventative maintenance. They were able to connect with a number of our aerospace companies and are able to offer that service to aerospace companies so that they can be even more competitive in their ventures. Just last month, we featured Lockheed Martin and the incredible news of their not just their F-16 production, but also their depot level maintenance contract that they were just awarded. And again, it's an opportunity for our network for our companies to be able to network with each other and learn more about the industry. We also keep a asset map in that second box there, and that is a overview of all 400 companies that are in the state of South Carolina, their location, their point of contact, so that people can reach out and see who else are here, or what other companies are here and who they can do business with. A few other things that we're doing: we host, along with our other clusters, a tech talk, bringing in speakers to present on innovation sustainability topics to create a discussion around where we think the industry is moving. We're hosting an aerospace night with the Greenville Drive, which is a local baseball team here, which creates opportunities for our companies to have community engagement and really be a part of the community that they're living in and the state of South Carolina. Or just a few months ago, we hosted a webinar, and we actually co-hosted it with the North Carolina Military Business Center, bringing in the Defense Logistics Agency Aviation Office to talk about how to win defense contracts and what to do once you've won the defense contracts. And so I show you this to give you an example of kind of what our organization can provide to any company that comes here to ensure that you're successful. Our success is your success, and we want to make whatever site is open here. We want to make that company's that company's most successful site in the world, be the one that's located in South Carolina. So these are just a number of things that we can provide. And then, like I said, we work with in the education space, and I'd just like to give you a little bit of an overview of the incredible educational infrastructure that we have here to support these companies. Right now, we have 7 aerospace high schools throughout the state of South Carolina. These high schools have a 4-year aerospace engineering curriculum of 1 class per year, where students learn the basics of aeronautical engineering. And in addition to that, we have a number, 30 plus Project Lead the Way programs, which are engineering focused programs as well, and a number of other schools. And these types of programs not only make sure that our youth are educated in STEM topics, but it sparks that curiosity for them to want to go into aeronautical engineering in college, or to want to be a pilot, or to want to go to a technical college and learn how to manufacture parts for an aircraft or parts for a satellite. And so we're very proud of those programs. We also have a number of other museums and learning centers, summer camps that help to create that inspiration as well. And then moving up, we into more workforce development directly for our plants and factories. We have 16 technical colleges throughout the state, spread out in every single region, that provide that technical training, whether it be CNC machining or IT infrastructure or welding. And all those programs are, help to ensure that our factories are filled with educated, high-tech, cutting-edge workers ready to produce parts, maintain aircraft, or build engines, build planes. I'd like to feature a couple places. The South Carolina Aeronautical Training Center at Trident Technical College, which you can see is in the southeast corner of the state. That was built, because we have Boeing in Charleston. And so, and Boeing has a very robust training program with Trident Technical College and the Aeronautical Training Center to make sure that their employees are trained. Up in the upstate, we also have the Greenville Technical College Center for Manufacturing Innovation, a beautiful campus where you can learn CNC machining and other be on the front edge of manufacturing technology to make sure that our factories are running well and efficient. So it's just great opportunities to make sure that your plants and your factories are full of good trained employees. And then lastly, we have the University of South Carolina McNair Aerospace Research Center. And so the University of South Carolina is located in Columbia, pretty much next door to the state capitol. But it has the state's aerospace engineering program where they provide a Bachelor of Science, a Master of Science, or a Master of Engineering in aerospace. But not only do they work in educating our students, they work with a number of companies on industry research. And you can see the list there: NASA, Boeing, Safran, the Air Force, Northrop Grumman, and a number of other companies that they're partnering with and helping to solve those problems that those companies have to make sure that their products are good and competitive and innovative and can move the industry forward. It's got a world-class faculty, the expertise in a number of areas, whether it's composites or predictive maintenance, joining technologies. And it's a very impressive facility. And it's one of the reasons that this state is so attractive to aerospace companies, because they're getting great students and they're getting a great faculty that can help them research and solve the problems that they have. But that's a general overview of SC Aerospace. I'm so thankful to Tarun for asking me to get to speak to all of you today. And there's my contact information, and I think we'll probably do some questions later. But thanks again, and we hope you land here in South Carolina.
Excellent, Stephen. This was a brilliant presentation, Stephen. I picked up on a few things, Stephen, especially how the association is working with existing new companies who set up to network within the state, so that there is business opportunity, collaboration, and how to guide them and even help them win contracts. So it's not that once the company is set up, you are taking these initiatives to have better business to business relationship within the companies within the state. And then, of course, I have visited the McNair Center. Brilliant. I have visited some of the technical colleges. And here I can say that some of the equipment and the training courses are right up there with the industry requirement. And also you mentioned how wide range of products, technologies, the companies are working in, right? Whether it's composites, some of the large advanced material. So brilliant, Stephen. I'm sure I'll come back to you already with some questions as part of Q&A. Thank you, Stephen. And thank you for sharing your slides. With that, I move to our next speaker. Our next speaker is Will Williams, President and CEO, Economic Development Partnership, and a person who has who's been part of commerce in his earlier avatar. But I hold one grudge against him, that as soon as travel is permitted, he'll be on the first flight to India. And I have no doubt that he will talk about his area and how some of it is really plug and play infrastructure. And not to steal the thunder, one very interesting location, which is access to, well, let Will give you all the details. Over to you, Will, for your presentation.
Thank you, Tarun. Good evening. It's great to be with you. As Tarun said, I'm Will Williams, and I'm President and CEO of the Western South Carolina Economic Development Partnership. We represent 4 counties out of the 46 in the state of South Carolina. And just to give you some reference, a county is kind of like the Indian Zilla. Did I say that correctly, Tarun? Okay, very good. So I'm going to share my screen, and you can see the presentation there in front of you. But as I said, we represent 4 counties. Yes, the population of those 4 counties is probably a small neighborhood in a community in India, but it's 224,000 people, 4 distinct counties, but they're all, as you can see down in the right-hand corner, they are interconnected. And we're right along the western edge of South Carolina, just before you go into the state of Georgia. So I want to talk a little bit about, I know I've seen some questions in the Q&A about property and how much it costs to set up. Well, I want to talk briefly about property. We have 3 different industrial parks that we work with in 3 of the 4 counties. And this one that you see on the screen is Sage Mill, which is in Aiken County. It has about 1,600 acres remaining to be developed. There are already several companies located there. We have 2 Bridgestone tire plants making different products. And the lines that you see drawn here are just that. They are lines on a piece of paper. For instance, if you look at site 1, it says there's 82 acres available, 64 of it is developable, but you don't have to take all of that. But in this particular industrial park, it's $35,000 per acre. Some of it's owned by the county government. Some of it is owned by a private landowner. But it just depends on where you locate in the park. All of this property has been thoroughly analyzed from an engineering standpoint. And while we encourage companies to do their own due diligence, they could, in theory, go and put a shovel in the ground and begin construction on a new facility. Depending on where you are in the park, you're either 1 to 3 miles away from the interstate, which we are 2.5 hours from international airports in Charlotte and Atlanta. And we also have very close proximity to regional airports, 50 miles away in Columbia. And I'm sorry, I'm not able to convert into kilometers, but most people that work in kilometers are do better converting to miles than we in America do converting to kilometers. And then the regional airport in Augusta is only about 25 minutes away. Okay, this is Edgefield County Industrial Park. It's about 5 miles away from Sage Mill. The land price there is $15,000 an acre. And as you can see, sites 1, 2, 3, and 6 are available. We just had a significant announcement that will take the building that you see there that had been vacant for a period of time. Generac is coming to produce generators here, and eventually their plans are to go into on the lot 5 and lot 4. But again, this park is shovel ready. You could come in and begin doing work 7 miles from Interstate 20, and within 30 minutes driving, you have 268,000 people that would be available to go to work. Now, I know this is probably different in India than it is here. I've heard Tarun and John and Amy talk about it, but I've not had the experience of being able to see it. But in South Carolina, especially in my area, a mile equals a minute. So I know I've heard that there are some inconvenient traffic jams from time to time around India. So we don't have those as frequently. So we're going to go a little bit further inland to the Saluda County Commerce Park. It's owned by the county. We have some of the due diligence done. It's further from the interstate, which that works for some companies. It doesn't work for all. It's $10,000 an acre. Again, you take as much as you want or as little as you need to establish your operation. And then we are within a 30-minute drive of this particular location. You have a smaller workforce, but of 139,000 people. So, and one thing that I wasn't able to get a slide on was we actually in Aiken, we have an FBO with runways that allow, private jets to land. And we have an industrial park located right along the fence line there. Was not able to get a slide in time for this, but so we have greenfield opportunities if you don't need access to a runway, or we have a site that would be able to give you access to a runway. So that's kind of a quick overview of our region. I think we have reasonable property prices. Depending on where you are in South Carolina, the property, if you get closer to Charleston, your property cost per acre is going to go up. And then in some of the bigger areas, it's more expensive. We're in what we refer to as a tertiary market. So we're close to Columbia. We're an hour away from Columbia. That would be, and Augusta is Georgia's second largest city. So even though we're in South Carolina, we wind up being affiliated a lot with Augusta, their labor shed, the amenities they bring about. So I appreciate this opportunity to be with you all today. And Tarun, I'll turn it back over to you.
Well, thank you, Will. And that brings us to the start of our Q&A. And we've got a lot of questions in the chat as well as in Q&A. But why don't I continue with you, Will, and tell me if my understanding has been correct. You gave us example of 3 sites, $35,000 an acre, $15,000 an acre, $10,000 an acre. I have two questions. Do these sites come with ready utilities, in the sense that utilities are there, and how difficult and how time consuming it is for the ownership to get transferred to a new investor who wants to maybe buy 3 acre and 5 acre and set up a plant?
Sure, Tarun. That's a good question. In terms of the sales process, that's typically a 30 to 45 day process, depending on, obviously a purchaser would like to do their own due diligence. And so that's typically that 30 day to 45 day time period, but closing is a very smooth process. And all the utilities at 2 of those industrial parks are right at the property line. So all you've got to do is have a facility constructed, and the utilities are brought right to the site. The park in Saluda, some of the utilities are there. Some of them have to be extended, but the extension is not very far. So, typically it takes a year to build from ground up, and that would have everything ready to go.
Great.
Utilities would be there and waiting on the building to be finished.
Right. And because these prices are very, very attractive, and I'm sure Brigadier Bhattacharya and Dr. Nair would echo with me. And the second is, you mentioned about an industrial park, which is next to the runway. Hypothetically, would companies who set up, and if they need that as part of their testing, drones, is that something which may be available, of course, on a cost, to use that for infrastructure?
Sure. And depending on how you would do that, it would obviously require some conversation with the FAA to be able to access that. But literally, we have 2 sites that back up to the perimeter, the fence line there. And they have 2 primary runways, but they also have some shorter runways that they don't use quite as often. But yes, it would be a conversation, would not be hard to make that happen. And they're building some additional hangars that could be converted into, even some construction of material to be used in an aerospace infrastructure. One other thing I'll mention, Tarun, and I failed to, we have the Savannah River National Lab, which is a part of the Department of Energy facility in our part of the state. So you have some of the top researchers and scientists in the United States. There are 17 national labs throughout the United States, and we have one right here in our region of South Carolina.
Great, great. Thanks, Will. And before I leave you, Will, any quick comments on the kind of lease rentals available on existing buildings, let's say for a 20,000 square foot facility? And in India, we do on per square feet per month, but if you do annual, I'll do the per month maths. Ballpark, how much does it cost to lease? Sorry, Will.
My apologies. It depends on many things, but somewhere between $10 to $15 a square foot, maybe more depending on what the upfit is. Okay. So it's fairly reasonable. And again, we didn't talk about that, but my region does not have as many buildings as we once did, available buildings, but there are buildings around the state that are available.
Right. So these are annual costs, just to clarify to the audience, these are annual lease rental costs, yeah?
Yes.
Okay, excellent. Thank you, Will. John, Stephen, I have another question. Considering that a lot of work is involved with defense, so do you see foreign companies participating in some of the defense business with the United States, and any particular sensitivity they should be aware of in terms of ownership structure? Yeah, anything you would want to comment? John, do you want to go?
Sure, Tarun, thank you. So I am not an expert on how the defense structure works with that, but I am aware companies, partnering up with US-based companies on defense contracts, particularly, to be sub-suppliers or whatever. And of course, they will have to go through the same scrutiny and security testing as their US primes. So Stephen, from your experience in your manufacturing career, do you have anything to add?
No, I would just kind of echo what you said, which is there'd be kind of the typical regulations and security requirements. But I think those opportunities, definitely are there to be able to partner, in the defense industry, but I like John, I'm actually not quite an expert in that side of it, but I do know that there, are security requirements that need to be met, and nothing that would be unreasonable, I think.
Right, right. And the other question which we have, and John, please fill me in, is that there is no minimum requirement. I think one of the questions to the panelists is there a minimum requirement? There's no minimum requirement of capital, I think, and there is no ownership restrictions. So it will really depend on a project to project basis, how much capital a company needs to bring in to set up operations and how much debt they need to raise locally. And those debts are raised, Dr. Nair, from the banks and financial institution on commercial terms. And whether it comes with a parental guarantee or not, that's something subject to the discussions with the individual banks and the company concerned. Then there's one more question on employee transfers from the Indian entity. Any visa regulation is governed by federal laws. I just want to, so state has no discretion on the movement of employees from India or otherwise. So that is something which is governed by federal, and it needs to comply with federal laws. Anything, John, you would like to add to this?
No, I just would like to add that you're correct in terms of the transfer of employees over. They will have to apply for business visas through the U.S. federal government. And of course, we are having a transition right now in terms of federal, our federal government and how we will be working with visas. But we do provide assistance through our chief protocol officer at the Department of Commerce to, if you're investing in the state and opening a facility in the state, we will work to write letters of support and get our federal delegation, our U.S. senators or congressmen, to also write letters of support to help a company obtain visas for employees that are critical to come over and, establish a facility.
Great. Thanks, John. John, any comment on the training? I know we touched upon Ready SC, but maybe for the benefit of the audience, does it cost if a foreign company is setting up or an Indian company is setting up and they want to train certain workforce in those technical colleges which you and Stephen alluded to? Are there any costs associated for the Indian company?
Sure, Tarun. So if you come to South Carolina, as part of our incentives, we will offer a training program called Ready SC through our technical college system. If you utilize that program, there is no cost to it. So Ready SC will partner with you to develop a customized training program, and we'll work to train your employees up to a level of employment that gets them in for you. Now, the technical colleges and universities offer what we call continuing education programs or partnerships. So this may be to upskill your existing workforce. And there may be some programs to help offset that cost available, but there also may be some cost associated with them. Typically, what we'll see a lot of times is a company will come in, they will utilize our training program for free, but then they will get a new skill set or a new product line in and need to upskill employees, and they will partner up with the technical college system at minimal cost to help provide the training.
Excellent. Thanks, John. Stephen, you touched upon very nicely on the whole technical colleges and McNair Center. Are companies also using McNair Center for training of their staff? Is that something it's available for the companies as well?
Yes, yeah, absolutely. And so company, if somebody wants to, if a company wants to put their staff into, like a master's program in aeronautical engineering or something like that, you have that ability with having the University of South Carolina here. And then like we said, just being able to partner with faculty as well, on research. But yeah, it's having that program here now in the state is just gives you another tool in the tool bag to be able to train your staff.
Excellent. Well, thank you. That brings me right on the clock. I know Brigadier Bhattacharya is watching me, so I want to stick to the time allocated. And want to thank, first of all, Dr. Nair and Brigadier Bhattacharya for taking this opportunity. It will be an honor to work with your members and support them as they look to expand in the United States. And I take 3 words from each of the speakers. One, of course, is mentoring. And second is ability to help on the, give them the market information, cost competitiveness, and Wills is ready plug and play infrastructure. With that, after this event, we will be circulating an FAQ with some of our responses and more details about the cluster of companies in South Carolina. With that, I thank everyone, thank all the attendees and all our panelists for taking out for this virtual investors meet. And we look forward to seeing our Indian companies in South Carolina. Have a good day and a good evening ahead. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks, Atal.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye. Bye.